On the 20 slides shown below, I present the original photographs of the Second World War from the German archive, which are in my collection. These photos are from my collection department, Wehrmacht on the Eastern and Western Fronts. If you like it, subscribe to my YouTube, like it, so you don't miss the new weekly presentations. If you would like to order 5 inches by 7 inches copies of these photos from the original, you can specify which photos you would like to receive. Laboratory quality. Enjoy your viewing. Adolf Hitler, German, ADLF Hitler, the 20th of April 1889, the 30th of April 1945, was an Austrian-born German politician who was the dictator of Germany from 1933 until his suicide in 1945. He rose to power as the leader of the Nazi Party, becoming the Chancellor in 1933 and then taking the title of Führer und Reichskanzler in 1934. During his dictatorship, he initiated World War II in Europe by invading Poland on the 1st of September 1939. Hitler dominated his country's war effort during World War II to a greater extent than any other national leader. He strengthened his control of the armed forces in 1938, and subsequently made all major decisions regarding Germany's military strategy. His decision to mount a risky series of offensives against Norway, France, and the Low Countries in 1940 against the advice of the military proved successful, though the diplomatic and military strategies he employed in attempts to force the United Kingdom out of the war ended in failure. Hitler deepened his involvement in the war effort by appointing himself Commander-in-Chief of the Army in December 1941. From this point forward, he personally directed the war against the Soviet Union, while his military commanders facing the Western Allies retained a degree of autonomy. Hitler's leadership became increasingly disconnected from reality as the war turned against Germany, with the military's defensive strategies often hindered by his slow decision-making and frequent directives to hold untenable positions. Nevertheless, he continued to believe that only his leadership could deliver victory. In the final months of the war, Hitler refused to consider peace negotiations, regarding the destruction of Germany as preferable to surrender. The military did not challenge Hitler's dominance of the war effort, and senior officers generally supported and enacted his decisions. Benito Amilcare Andrea Mussolini, the 29th of July 1883, the 28th of April 1945, was an Italian dictator and journalist who founded and led the National Fascist Party, PNF. He was Prime Minister of Italy from the March on Rome in 1922 until his deposition in 1943, as well as Duce of Italian Fascism from the establishment of the Italian Fasces of Combat in 1919 until his summary execution in 1945 by Italian partisans. As dictator of Italy and principal founder of fascism, Mussolini inspired and supported the international spread of fascist movements during the interwar period. After his fall from power in 1943, Mussolini began speaking more about God and the obligations of conscience, although he still had little use for the priests and sacraments of the Church. He also began drawing parallels between himself and Jesus Christ. Mussolini's widow, Rachel, stated that her husband had remained basically irreligious until the later years of his life. Mussolini was given a funeral in 1957 when his remains were placed in the family crypt. Karl Rudolf Gerd von Rundstedt, the 12th of December 1875, the 24th of February 1953, was a German field marshal in the Heer, Army, of Nazi Germany during World War II. Born into a Prussian family with a long military tradition, von Rundstedt entered the Prussian army in 1892. During World War I, he served mainly as a staff officer. In the interwar years, he continued his military career, reaching the rank of Colonel General, Generaloberst, before retiring in 1938. He was recalled at the beginning of World War II as commander of Army Group South in the invasion of Poland. He commanded Army Group A during the Battle of France, and requested the halt order during the Battle of Dunkirk. He was promoted to the rank of Field Marshal in 1940. In the invasion of the Soviet Union, he commanded Army Group South, responsible for the largest encirclement in history, the Battle of Kiev. He was relieved of command in December 1941 after authorizing the withdrawal from Rostov, but was recalled in 1942 and appointed Commander-in-Chief in the West. He was dismissed after the German defeat in Normandy in July 1944 but was again recalled as Commander-in-Chief in the West in September, holding this post until his final dismissal by Adolf Hitler in March 1945. Though aware of the various plots to depose Hitler, von Rundstedt neither supported nor reported them. After the war, he was charged with war crimes, but did not face trial due to his age and poor health. He was released in 1949, and died in 1953. Johannes Erwin Eugen Rommel, the 15th of November 1891, the 14th of October 1944, was a German field marshal during World War II. Popularly known as the Desert Fox, he served in the Wehrmacht, armed forces, of Nazi Germany, as well as serving in the Reichswehr of the Weimar Republic, and the Army of Imperial Germany. Rommel was injured multiple times in both World Wars. Rommel was a highly decorated officer in World War I as well and was awarded the Paula Merite for his actions on the Italian front. In 1937, he published his classic book on military tactics, Infantry Attacks, drawing on his experiences in that war. Wolfgang Luth, the 15th of October 1913, the 14th of May 1945, was a German U-boat captain of World War II who was credited with the sinking of 46 merchant ships plus the French submarine Doris sunk during 15 war patrols, for a total tonnage of 225,204 gross register tons, GRT. Luth joined the Reichsmarine in 1933. After a period of training on surface vessels, he transferred to the U-boat service in 1936. In December 1939 he received command of U-9, which he took on 6 war patrols. In June 1940 he took command of U-138 for 2 patrols. In October 1940 he transferred again, this time to the ocean-going submarine U-43 for 5 war patrols. After 2 patrols on U-181, the second being his longest of the war, he was awarded the Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross with oak leaves, swords, and diamonds. He was the first of 2 U-boat commanders to be so honored during World War II, the other recipient being Albrecht Brandy. Luth's last service position was commander of the Naval Academy Mervik near Flensburg. He was accidentally shot and killed by a German sentry after the end of the war on the night of 13/14th of May 1945. On the 16th of May 1945, Luth was given a state funeral by the Flensburg government. On the 31st of January 1943, Luth and other Kriegsmarine officers traveled to the Wolfslair, Hitler's headquarters at Rastenburg, present-day Kętrzyn in Poland, for the oak leaves presentation. Following the presentation, Hitler met with Dönitz and Vizeadmiral Theodor Kranke in private. During this meeting, Hitler appointed Dönitz as Oberbefehlshaber der Marine, Commander-in-Chief, of the Kriegsmarine following Raeder's resignation on the 30th of January 1943. On the return flight to Berlin, Dönitz informed Luth and the other officers present of this change in command. The Nazi Party, officially the National Socialist German Workers' Party or NSDAP, was a far-right political party in Germany active between 1920 and 1945 that created and supported the ideology of Nazism. Its precursor, the German Workers' Party, Deutsche Arbeiterpartei, DAP, existed from 1919 to 1920. The Nazi Party emerged from the extremist German nationalist, racist and populist Freikorps paramilitary culture, which fought against the communist uprisings in post-World War I Germany. The party was created to draw workers away from communism and into Volkist nationalism. Initially, Nazi political strategy focused on anti-big business, anti-bourgeois, and anti-capitalist rhetoric, which was later downplayed to gain the support of business leaders. By the 1930s, the party's main focus shifted to anti-Semitic and anti-Marxist themes. The party had little popular support until the Great Depression, where worsening living standards and vast unemployment drove Germans into political extremism. Paul Joseph Goebbels, the 29th of October 1897, the 1st of May 1945, was a German Nazi politician who was the Gauleiter, district leader, of Berlin, chief propagandist for the Nazi Party, and then Reich Minister of Propaganda from 1933 to 1945. He was one of Adolf Hitler's closest and most devoted acolytes, known for his skills in public speaking and his deeply virulent anti-Semitism, which was evident in his publicly voiced views. He advocated progressively harsher discrimination, including the extermination of the Jews in the Holocaust. Goebbels, who aspired to be an author, obtained a doctorate in philology from the University of Heidelberg in 1921. He joined the Nazi Party in 1924, and worked with Gregor Strasser in its northern branch. He was appointed Gauleiter of Berlin in 1926, where he began to take an interest in the use of propaganda to promote the party and its program. After the Nazis came to power in 1933, Goebbels's propaganda ministry quickly gained and exerted control over the news media, arts, and information in Nazi Germany. He was particularly adept at using the relatively new media of radio and film for propaganda purposes. Topics for party propaganda included anti-Semitism, attacks on the Christian churches, and, after the start of the Second World War, attempting to shape morale. In 1943, Goebbels began to pressure Hitler to introduce measures that would produce total war, including closing businesses not essential to the war effort, conscripting women into the labor force, and enlisting men in previously exempt occupations into the Wehrmacht. Hitler finally appointed him as Reich Plenipotentiary for total war on the 23rd of July 1944, whereby Goebbels undertook largely unsuccessful measures to increase the number of people available for armaments manufacture and the Wehrmacht. As the war drew to a close and Nazi Germany faced defeat, Magda Goebbels and the Goebbels children joined Hitler in Berlin. They moved into the underground Vorbunker, part of Hitler's underground bunker complex, on the 22nd of April 1945. Hitler committed suicide on the 30th of April. In accordance with Hitler's will, Goebbels succeeded him as Chancellor of Germany. He served 1 day in this post. The following day, Goebbels and his wife committed suicide, after having poisoned their 6 children with a cyanide compound. Rudolf Walter Richard Hess, the 26th of April 1894, the 17th of August 1987, was a German politician and a leading member of the Nazi Party in Nazi Germany. Appointed deputy Führer to Adolf Hitler in 1933, Hess held that position until 1941, when he flew solo to Scotland in an attempt to negotiate the United Kingdom's exit from the Second World War. He was taken prisoner and eventually convicted of crimes against peace. He was still serving his life sentence at the time of his suicide in 1987. Hess enlisted as an infantryman in the Imperial German Army at the outbreak of World War I. He was wounded several times during the war and was awarded the Iron Cross, second class, in 1915. Shortly before the war ended, Hess enrolled to train as an aviator, but he saw no action in that role. He left the armed forces in December 1918 with the rank of Lieutenant der Reserve. In 1919, Hess enrolled in the University of Munich, where he studied geopolitics under Karl Haushofer, a proponent of the concept of Lebensraum, living space, which became one of the pillars of Nazi ideology. Hess joined the Nazi Party on 1 July 1920 and was at Hitler's side on 8 November 1923 for the Beer Hall Putsch, a failed Nazi attempt to seize control of the government of Bavaria. While serving a prison sentence for this attempted coup, he assisted Hitler with Mein Kampf, which became a foundation of the political platform of the Nazi Party. Dwight David Eisenhower, born David Dwight Eisenhower, October 14, 1890, March 28, 1969, was an American military officer and statesman who served as the 34th President of the United States from 1953 to 1961. During World War II, he served as Supreme Commander of the Allied Expeditionary Force in Europe and achieved the 5-star rank as General of the Army. Eisenhower planned and supervised two of the most consequential military campaigns of World War II, Operation Torch in the North Africa Campaign in 1942 to 1943 and the D-Day invasion of Normandy in 1944. Hermann Wilhelm Göring, the 12th of January 1893, the 15th of October 1946, was a German politician, military leader, and convicted war criminal. He was one of the most powerful figures in the Nazi Party, which ruled Germany from 1933 to 1945. A veteran World War I fighter pilot ace, Göring was a recipient of the Polamerite, the Blue Max. He was the last commander of Jägergeschwader 1, JGI, the fighter wing once led by Manfred von Richthofen. An early member of the Nazi Party, Göring was among those wounded in Adolf Hitler's failed beer hall putsch in 1923. While receiving treatment for his injuries, he developed an addiction to morphine which persisted until the last year of his life. After Hitler became Chancellor of Germany in 1933, Göring was named as minister without portfolio in the new government. One of his first acts as a cabinet minister was to oversee the creation of the Gestapo, which he ceded to Heinrich Himmler in 1934. Following the establishment of the Nazi state, Göring amassed power and political capital to become the second most powerful man in Germany. He was appointed Commander-in-Chief of the Luftwaffe, Air Force, a position he held until the final days of the regime. Upon being named plenipotentiary of the four-year plan in 1936, Göring was entrusted with the task of mobilizing all sectors of the economy for war, an assignment which brought numerous government agencies under his control. In September 1939, Hitler designated him as his successor and deputy in all his offices. After the fall of France in 1940, he was bestowed the specially created rank of Reichsmarschall, which gave him seniority over all officers in Germany's armed forces. Heinrich Luitpold Himmel, the 7th of October 1900, the 23rd of May 1945, was the Reichsführer of the Schutzstaffel, Protection Squadron, SS, a leading member of the Nazi Party of Germany, and one of the most powerful men in Nazi Germany, primarily known for being a main architect of the Holocaust. As a member of a reserve battalion during the First World War, Himmler did not see active service or combat. Having joined the Nazi Party in 1923 and the SS in 1925, he was appointed Reichsführer SS by Adolf Hitler in 1929. Over the next 16 years, Himmler developed the SS from a 290-man battalion into a million-strong paramilitary group. He was known for good organizational skills and for selecting highly competent subordinates, such as Reinhard Heydrich in 1931. From 1943 onwards, he was both chief of the Kriminalpolizei, criminal police, and Minister of the Interior, overseeing all internal and external police and security forces, including the Gestapo, secret state police. He also controlled the Waffen-SS, the military branch of the SS. Himmler's interest in occultism and Volkische topics influenced the development of the racial policy of Nazi Germany. He also incorporated esoteric symbolism and rituals into the SS. He was the principal overseer of Nazi Germany's genocidal programs, forming the Einsatzgruppen and administering extermination camps. In this capacity, Himmler directed the killing of some 6 million Jews, between 200,000 and 500,000 Romanis, and other victims. The total number of civilians killed by the Nazi regime is estimated at 11 to 14 million people, most of whom were Polish and Soviet citizens. Late in the Second World War, Hitler briefly appointed Himmler as military commander and later commander of the replacement, Home, Army and General Plenipotentiary for the administration of the entire Third Reich, General Bevelmächtigter für die Verwaltung. Specifically, he was given command of the Army Group Upper Rhine and the Army Group Vistula. After Himmler failed to achieve his assigned objectives, Hitler replaced him in these posts. Realizing the war was lost, Himmler attempted to open peace talks with the Western Allies without Hitler's knowledge, shortly before the end of the war. Hearing of this, Hitler dismissed him from all his posts in April 1945 and ordered his arrest. Himmler attempted to go into hiding but was detained and then arrested by British forces once his identity became known. While in British custody, he died by suicide on the 23rd of May 1945. Baldur Benedict von Schirach, the 9th of May 1907, the 8th of August 1974, was a German politician who served as head of the Hitler Youth from 1931 to 1940. From 1940 to 1945, he was the Gauleiter, district leader, and Reichsstatthalter, Reich Governor, of Vienna. A member of the Nazi Party from the age of 18, Schirach was named National Youth Leader of the party in 1931. In 1932, he was elected as a deputy to the Reichstag. After Adolf Hitler became Chancellor of Germany in 1933, he was appointed Jugendführer, youth leader, of the German Reich, responsible for all youth organizations in the nation. In 1940, Schirach saw action as an infantryman in the French campaign, for which he was awarded the Iron Cross, second class. In 1940, Schirach was appointed Gauleiter of the Reichsgau Vienna. Arthur Axmann succeeded him as leader of the Hitler Youth. A virulent anti-Semite, he was responsible for deporting 65,000 Viennese Jews to various Nazi concentration camps in German-occupied Poland. In April 1945, facing Red Army advance, Schirach fled from Vienna to Tyrol, where he later surrendered to American forces. At the Nuremberg trials, he was convicted of crimes against humanity and sentenced to 20 years in prison. After completing his sentence at Spandau in 1966, Schirach retired to southern Germany. He died in 1974 at the age of 67. Reinhard Tristan Eugen Heydrich, the 7th of March 1904, the 4th of June 1942, was a high-ranking German SS and police official during the Nazi era and a principal architect of the Holocaust. Heydrich was chief of the Reich Security Main Office, including the Gestapo, Kripo, and SD. He was also Stellvertreter and the Reichsprotector, deputy/acting Reich Protector, of Bohemia and Moravia. He served as president of the International Criminal Police Commission, ICPC, now known as Interpol, and chaired the January 1942 Wannsee Conference, which formalized plans for the final solution to the Jewish question, the deportation and genocide of all Jews in German-occupied Europe. Many historians regard Heydrich as one of the darkest figures within the Nazi regime. Adolf Hitler described him as the man with the iron heart. He was the founding head of the Sicherheitsdienst, Security Service South Dakota, an intelligence organization charged with seeking out and neutralizing resistance to the Nazi Party via arrests, deportations, and murders. He helped organize Kristallnacht, a series of coordinated attacks against Jews throughout Nazi Germany and parts of Austria on 9–10 November 1938. The attacks were carried out by SA stormtroopers and civilians and presaged the Holocaust. Upon his arrival in Prague, Heydrich sought to eliminate opposition to the Nazi occupation by suppressing Czech culture and deporting and executing members of the Czech resistance. He was directly responsible for the Einsatzgruppen, the special task forces that traveled in the wake of the German armies and murdered more than 2 million people by mass shooting and gassing, including 1.3 million Jews. In London, the Czechoslovak government in exile resolved to kill Heydrich. Jan Kubis and Josef Gabčík headed the team chosen for the mission, trained by the British Special Operations Executive, SOE. On the 28th of December 1941 they parachuted into the Protectorate, where they lived in hiding, preparing for the mission. On the 27th of May 1942, Heydrich planned to meet Hitler in Berlin. German documents suggest that Hitler intended to transfer him to German-occupied France, where the French resistance was gaining ground. 128. To get from his home to the airport, Heydrich would have to pass a section where the Dresden-Prague road merges with the road to the Troja Bridge. The junction in the Prague suburb of Lieben was well suited for the attack because motorists have to slow for a hairpin bend. As Heydrich's car slowed, Gabčík took aim with a Sten submachine gun, but it jammed and failed to fire. Heydrich ordered his driver, Klein, to halt and attempted to confront Gabčík rather than speed away. Kubis, who had not been spotted by Heydrich or Klein, threw a converted anti-tank mine at the car as it stopped, which landed against the rear wheel. The explosion ripped through the right rear fender and wounded Heydrich, with metal fragments and fibers from the upholstery causing serious damage to his left side. He suffered major injuries to his diaphragm, spleen, and one lung, as well as a broken rib. Kubis received a minor shrapnel wound to his face. After Kubis fled, Heydrich ordered Klein to chase Gabčík on foot, and Gabčík shot Klein in the leg before escaping. On the 3rd of June, the day after Himmler's visit, Heydrich fell into a coma and never regained consciousness. He died on the 4th of June. The autopsy concluded that he died of sepsis. Heydrich's widow Lena won the right to a pension following a series of court cases against the West German government in 1956 and 1959. She was declared entitled to a substantial pension as her husband was a German general killed in action. The government had previously declined to pay due to Heydrich's role in the Holocaust. The couple had 4 children: Klaus, born in 1933, killed in a traffic accident in 1943, Heide, born in 1934, Silke, born in 1939, and Mart, born shortly after her father's death in 1942. Lena wrote a memoir, Leben mit einem Kriegsverbrecher, Living with a War Criminal, which was published in 1976. She remarried once and died in 1985.